So I'm literally just in my room right now. I'm literally in my bedroom. But I had made this whole space in my garage to do something like this, and it's just too hot. I'm in Texas, it's just too hot right now. And I don't even know why I even started it. When it gets cooler, it'll be fine. I got excited and because I wanted another space, but honestly, this is fine. Yeah, it's a little dirty in here right now, but I've been just having this thing where I want to have more of like a fluid conversation, and I want to have a space where I can talk about spiritual topics, but also talk about like very human things and meld the two, and things that are going on right now. Just how like relevant topics that are going on in the collective, you can always pull them back to spiritual topics. And there's a reason that things happen in the collective, because we're all supposed to be learning these things. So I wanted to create a space where I could do that, and it could be very chill and grounded, but still deep at the same time. This is going to be very podcast style. And like I said, just bringing the spiritual into your everyday life, because I feel like there's not enough people that do that. It's either like super deep spiritual podcast where like everything's like all like high and mighty, versus there's certain podcasts that are just so superficial, you know, and they never talk about the deeper topics. So I wanted to create something that kind of melded it all together. And there's certain like long form topics that I just wouldn't really be able to put on TikTok, so I'm putting it here. This particular episode or video, I wanted to focus more on the spiritual community as a whole, because it's been almost 10 years now. I guess it's like 9.5 since I woke up, if you will. I had like a full-blown spiritual awakening in college, my freshman year of college, and I've been on a lot of ups and downs since then. My belief in something bigger than myself has not gone away, even in a new age sense, right? Because even when I was younger, like I believed in some type of God, but it was a more Christian God. Ever since I woke up in freshman year of college, I started connecting to a different kind of God and understanding like the truth of what God really is and what spirituality really is. And yes, that's more in like a new age sense, I guess. And that's never gone away over these past 10 years. But there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs, and I've watched it really change a lot over time, and my opinions on a lot of things have changed. So I wanted to go through a bunch of different topics and certain subjects that we all come across when you start to have a spiritual awakening. And I wanted to kind of show how my opinion has changed over these 9.5 years, 10 years. And it might be kind of controversial, some of them, but I also think that anyone that's in it for this long, you do start to evolve and change with it, just like anything. Because at the beginning of all this, and I think everyone goes through this at the beginning of their spiritual awakening, they're kind of like, oh my God, it's this secret that I want everyone to know. And then after a while, it's just becomes an everyday thing of your life. Like now it's just something that, because once you wake up, you can't go backwards. It's like a blessing and a curse, because there's even some days that I wish that I didn't sometimes. I wish that I could just have blinders on like some people. But at the same time, it's a blessing that we were given the opportunity to wake up. And now it's just who I am. It's just a part of my everyday life. And it's crazy over time watching more and more people wake up, which is like a super amazing thing. Even if certain people don't grow on a spiritual path or wake up to a certain extent, I feel like there's a good amount of people that at least wake up a little bit, you know? The whole generation of Gen Z has woken up to an extent, which I think is really beautiful and crazy, like watching it all unfold. But it also is crazy like seeing how much flack that generation gets, because it's like pushing everyone's boundaries on everything. And I'm saying like most of Gen Z, they don't want to live like the typical life. Like there are so many of them that want to just go travel or not work a 9-to-5. They want to start their own thing. Like in that sense, that is waking up. Like that is breaking out of the matrix, if you will. And I'll even say like there's even some of my friends that like work in the corporate world, and it's like a thing at their companies to be like, well, well, Gen Z, you know, they don't want to pay their dues. And in a sense, I know there's a balance to that. Like, there has to be a balance with it. But it's just funny how that generation gets flack when actually they're the one that is making us wake up. Like, they're making people think differently about things. And this is where the power of TikTok comes in, because I do believe that so many more people had a spiritual awakening because of TikTok. Now, there comes another layer with this, where it's like, did some people get bad advice because they found it on TikTok? Yeah, I think that that is the truth too. Because there's this thing that happens when, this is like an open discussion though, because I want to know what y'all's opinion on this is, because it's just an observation that I've made, that when something is so popular or so many people know about it, it starts to like lose its potency, or it starts to have like a lot of fluff around it and not be taken as seriously, and there can be much more misconceptions about it. And that's where I mean, like, so many people are like open to astrology now, which is amazing. I remember being in the 8th grade and my best friend's brother showed me a birth chart, and I was like, what the heck is this? That was like literally almost the start of everything for me. But now it's like everybody knows their sun, moon, and rising basically, which also can be overwhelming because there's so many differing opinions about things now. But this is what's hard when so many things become so mainstream. So like spiritual awakening, spirituality becoming more mainstream and more well-known, so much more misinformation can be out there, which is hard. It's hard to like discern. There's so much fluff sometimes to the point where it's like, what are we even talking about anymore? Like, it just becomes overwhelming. Today, the day that I'm filming this, is it's a new moon. It's July 17th. It's a new moon in Cancer, and it's just so sensationalized and dramatic, and people get on there and they're like, your life's about to change forever. And it's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Maybe for some people, but like that is not how it's going to be for everybody. But it's because of TikTok and because of that age of anybody can go viral, it's like people will say anything so that they do get views, so that ends up hurting astrology. That ends up hurting these like spiritual concepts that are like ancient, like been pushed down for generations, and now they just become so watered down. But again, like, I see both sides of it, because it's better for more people to know about it. At least it's planting a seed, but we also have to use discernment, and that's where people struggle to use it. And this whole phenomena that I'm talking about, I've seen it happen with other things too, and I'm gonna do a whole video on like celebrities, because I do believe that looking at celebrities' lives, even though of course they're just people too, but looking at celebrities' lives can help us with our lives. Because if we're looking at it through a spiritual lens, they chose to come into this life being famous, which means that collectively certain themes are going to be played out through their lives, and we get to learn things through their lives, and our shadow gets projected onto these people. So when we judge celebrities for certain things, we're actually judging ourselves. It's like it brings up these topics that we can talk about as a collective, because we're looking at people that have gone through the same thing. So I'm gonna do a whole like episodes video on just that. But I bring this up with like the TikTok thing and spirituality becoming more mainstream because I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan, okay? I have been since 6th grade. I went through a lot of times where not everyone was a Taylor Swift fan, and there was a lot of, you know, internalized misogyny, and it was not popular to be one. But now, through the power of TikTok, everyone is a Taylor Swift fan. And trust me, I know that like there's an ego part of me that comes up that's like, you don't know her like I do, and like, you know, I know that that's my ego like trying to feel better than another person. But there's also this whole other thing that comes with it, like I was talking about before, that like when something becomes so mainstream, it's just, there's so many opinions, and there becomes like this group think nature. Like even whenever I went to the Eras tour, I felt this huge pressure to like dress up in a certain way and like wear a costume, when every other Taylor tour I've been to, and I've been to all of them except like the very first one, Fearless was the first one I'd been to, I'm so grateful for, but it was never, you never had to dress up. Like, you were just comfortable at a concert. And because of the power of TikTok, it's like, oh, I'm gonna one up what everyone's wearing, like I'm gonna have the best costume. And I do think this started because of like all the Harry Styles concerts, everyone started doing that, but it just shows how everything starts getting kind of muddy. And even certain like cycles that I've seen play out through Taylor's career with fans, like I see the cycle happening over and over because I've been there that long. Just interesting to witness, because I see the same thing that happens in spirituality, the spiritual community as well. But there's also this other thing that happens, and this goes with like the Taylor Swift thing, but it also goes with the spiritual community or spiritual awakening, that when so many people know about something, it takes away its like specialness or like this sparkle. Again, maybe that's an ego thing. I'm not sure, but it just breeds more misinformation. I'm gonna go through some certain topics that I had a totally different opinion about it at the beginning of my spiritual awakening versus now. And some of it is because these things have become so well known that people have like beaten a dead horse. Like, it feels like it's like beating a dead horse at this point with certain topics, to now they just don't resonate in the same way they used to. So the first one is crystals. I used to love crystals and like feel so connected, and I felt like I could actually feel the different vibrations of them. And yes, I know there's like scientific research to show that there is like different vibrations and frequencies to certain crystals. But now that it feels like everyone got on that train and it's not even really a special thing anymore, I swear like crystals just don't resonate how they used to. Like, of course, like I have them, I still have them and wear them, but I don't necessarily feel the power that I used to with them. I don't feel that frequency anymore with them like I used to. And maybe that's just something that you just grow out of. It served its purpose at one point in my journey and it just doesn't anymore. Maybe that's what it is. Another thing is law of attraction, which I have a whole video about that on my channel. There's like so much deeper that I could go into that whole topic, but at the very beginning of my spiritual awakening, like that's what made me wake up, was learning about The Secret and Abraham Hicks and all of that. I really went through a whole journey of just realizing that that wasn't the whole truth. Like, thinking positive, just focusing on what you want and nothing else, like that is not actually how you manifest things. And if you are able to manifest like that, it's because you probably had a great childhood, you probably had a great upbringing, and you probably came from a lot of privilege. And not to say that I haven't, because I have come from privilege. But it's almost like, and again, I have a whole video about this, but it's almost like if you came in with a great operating system, like the beliefs that you are operating from, then of course, focusing on the thing you want and working towards it, like of course that is going to manifest things for you. But for a lot of us that have so many shadows and so many fears and have a wounded inner child, and we do not believe in ourselves, we don't believe in our autonomy, we have to face those things and look at those things before we're able to manifest. So I won't go into all of that, but I used to really think like that was the secret to life, was what you focus on manifests. And I look back and it kind of makes me sad, because that part of me was like so, or that version of me was like so excited about life. And because how old was I? That like 18-year-old me was like, oh my God, I'm 18 years old and I know the secret to life, you know. And it's sad looking back. Again, it did serve its purpose. And I think about that a lot, that I wonder why these higher beings like Abraham, why would they start with that? You know, because that was something that went very mainstream. And that, again, that's a great example of like The Secret and how that going so mainstream, yes, it was great that so many people found out about it, but at the same time, it brought so much misinformation with it, and it made everything more confusing for some people. So, but I do think about that sometimes, like, why would a being like Abraham, this like higher dimensional being, bring in something that might not be the whole truth, or might, yeah, it's just not the whole truth. It's not the whole equation to manifestation. I kind of came to the realization that maybe it's because that's what people needed to know first. Because if a higher dimensional being came down and was like, you need to look at all this shit that you don't want to look at, people probably would not have listened. They needed something that was so almost like a fairy tale so that people would actually listen. So I honestly think that that's what it was. And again, like, it was just something on my journey that I think I did need. But, and I've talked about this before, there's multiple stages to spiritual awakening. And I kind of go by what Teal Swan says, because I do believe that, and I know people have certain opinions about Teal Swan, and of course I do too, after everything has come out. But I still am able to look at her teachings as separate from her, and she has a really good one about the separate stages of spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening 1.0 is you learn that you create your reality, okay? But then, because you're trying to create your reality, you're running from all your stuff. So then spirituality 2.0 is realizing where your resistance is and where you're running from, okay? And once you've done that, 3.0 is that you come to a place of peace, because everything, it's almost like you get back to the God state, because God is everything. You lessen your resistance to everything so that things flow easier to you. But I mean, that shows why I think learning about law of attraction in that way first, that was probably what I needed. That's what we needed as a collective too. But I will say, and this is where like misinformation comes, you know, I was watching this podcast, Lewis Howes, if y'all know him. He had this money guy on there, and I can't remember his name, but I probably shouldn't even say it anyways. He had this money guy on there that was like talking about money manifestation and how he manifests money. He's called like a money guru and stuff. And Lewis asked this guy, have you ever had issues with money? And this guy said no. So it's just like, why would I listen to a guy that's never had to overcome certain issues with money? Because again, that is an example of a person that's just coming in with a better operating system. So of course he's able to manifest money. He doesn't have the limiting beliefs. He literally said, I've never had issues with it. So, and he was really doing the more, again, like that first stage of spiritual awakening. He was talking from a more, well, you just have to make friends with money and you have to think of money in a positive way. And it's like, yeah, that works for you because you've never had to look at the shadow of it and you've never had certain blocks. So, and that's why I always say, like, if someone hasn't gone through the blocks that you have with manifestation, or if they've never manifested the thing that you want to manifest, you probably shouldn't listen to that person. And that is why I'm very particular about the things that I talk about when it comes to manifestation, because I have not manifested everything that I've wanted to. I've done a lot of things that I'm proud of, and obviously I've manifested this and the business that I have and that I prayed for years, which I could do a whole episode on that if y'all wanted me to. I made a video about manifesting my house, but you know, there's a lot of things that I don't necessarily talk about because I don't want to act like, oh, I'm a guru on this, even though most people that they say they're a guru on it, they're actually not, you know. Another subject that I just look at very differently now is meditation. I used to think that in order to meditate, I had to be in complete silence, no thoughts whatsoever, that I was aiming for meditating for hours a day, like that would be the goal to do that. And now I've just realized that anything can be a meditation. And I talk about this in my Spirit Home course. Meditating can be just turning inward, like connecting with your guides can just be turning inward. I do a walking meditation almost every day when I walk dogs in the morning. So, and again, like, it was probably good that at first I was doing those long meditations at the beginning of my journey, but it's just not me anymore. And again, this is where like spirituality just becomes just an everyday part of your life, and it becomes not so sensationalized. Another thing that I used to have a completely different opinion about whenever I first woke up versus now, and I want to do a whole video on this, and I'll talk about this in terms of celebrity too at some point, but there was a big thing in the spiritual community, and still is, about this thing called spiritual psychosis. I used to even make the joke that whenever I first woke up, if someone was looking at me, they'd think I was in psychosis. And looking back, it's like, no, that's not true. Because now I've seen psychosis with my own eyes. Most of y'all know, but someone really close to me did lose their mind last year. And it was a huge wake-up call for me that, like, why in the spiritual community is it almost... it's like this funny thing that, oh, I'm going through spiritual psychosis. And I swear, like, some of these young people, they think that's a good thing. And it's like, well, first of all, losing sense of your reality is so scary. And if it's actually real psychosis, you wouldn't even be able to say that you're in it. You know, you wouldn't be able to say, I'm in spiritual psychosis. You know, like, someone that's in psychosis, they are pushing against you, saying, I'm not crazy, okay? But I understand where the term comes from, because whenever I did wake up, it was like I saw the whole world different. My reality did shatter in a way, but I didn't lose grip on who I was. I was still in my body. I still, you know, I would still go to my college classes. Like, it didn't completely affect my ego, I guess. Like, I didn't lose my grip, you know? And I absolutely hate when people in the spiritual community will say things. And again, I probably thought this, like, I never really went deep into it, but I probably did think, like, oh, if someone's in psychosis, they're probably just so connected to the other side, and they're, you know, people with schizophrenia, maybe they're just seeing ghosts, and yeah, maybe there's some of that sprinkled in there. But trust me, when you actually see someone with your own eyes and someone very close to you lose grip on reality, you are not going to be saying that shit, okay? I even had something recently happen to me where it wasn't even people that believe in the stuff that I do, but it was people that are more like Christian, and someone that knows what happened to my brother, and they were talking about, well, I think when people are schizophrenic or they're going crazy, like, demons are just attached to them and it's the devil. And I had to hold my tongue, and I kind of regret not saying anything in that moment. But it's just these, and of course I do think that when someone goes through something like that, I do think that darker forces cling on to it, but I don't think the darker forces are the reason for it, if that makes sense. It's literally brain chemistry, and I know that physical, emotional, and spiritual things are all connected, and I do believe that, but we can't let go of the physical aspect, because the reason that this even happened to my loved one was because of a stroke that he had, which is his physical brain now firing in a different way. So we can't lose sight of all parts of it. And I think that in the spiritual community, they almost want to focus more on just the spiritual side, when it's all connected. It's all connected, and we can't just focus on the spiritual when it's everything. It's everything. But yeah, that is something that I see completely different now. And you know, even when that happened, and again, I want to do a whole video on this, but the way that that happened, it did make me question my beliefs about a lot of things. And it even made me have like a spiritual crisis myself on, like, is all of this real? And I think that it was good for me, because it made me get very clear on what is spirituality for me. And because some people would look at what I do, and I do readings and I give psychic messages, people could look at what I do and think that that is a sense of psychosis. That is me losing it in some way. But it kind of created this blank slate for me, where now I know what it looks like to lose grip on reality. And I know that that is not what I'm doing. It's coming from a very grounded place. And I know for sure that this is not just me crazy talking. I know that for sure now. But I think it was good that I kind of had that moment of like, shit, like, is this bad that I'm doing all this? Because some spiritual topics kind of pushed my loved one over the edge, because they also had woken up. They were on some type of spiritual path. And I think that some of these like topics of feeling like you are a part of God, that can feed into delusion, that can feed into mania big time. So, and it made me be like, oh no, like me sharing these topics, is this gonna make someone somewhere like go over the edge? And it made me even more make sure that I'm doing this all from a very grounded place, and I'm showing all aspects of things, and knowing that my words are so, like, I have to be careful with my words and that they matter. And if they matter, I can't just flippantly just say things. I need to make sure that they resonate with me, and that, again, like the thing with manifestation, like that I've experienced them, and it's things that have helped me, and then I tell you. It's not just stuff that I speak on without knowing anything about. And that kind of brings me to the end of this, where I think all these subjects that I talked about, and I feel like there's more, so maybe even in the comments y'all tell me if there's other topics like that you used to experience so differently at the beginning of your spiritual journey versus now. But I think that just shows that things come in waves, and there are levels to things, and you're always evolving and growing. And the truth is, all of those things, manifestation, crystals, I could probably do a whole thing about like tarot, like all of these tools, they aren't what spirituality is. They're just things that are helping you on your way. They're helping you, because spirituality is all about you and your connection to the divine. And it's about you living a more peaceful, purposeful life, and knowing that you are a spiritual being in a human experience, and that this is just an experience, and that's it. And you're not too identified with the human experience, that you know that this is just a passage of time, and all the other fluff, that doesn't matter. And to make this full circle, you know, with like the power of TikTok, we can start to get really wrapped up in what other people are saying, when spirituality is about your connection to you. And I try to make this very clear with the videos that I make, that anything that I say, or that any other person that talks about these topics, like anything that you hear, it should just help you to strengthen your connection to yourself and to trust your own inner authority. That's why I do readings, but I also teach you how to develop your own intuition, because there's a lot of stuff online that can make you feel like I'm gonna put my power in somebody else, when your power is in you. And that is what true spirituality is about, that the power is not in the meditation, it's not in the law of attraction, the power is not in the crystal. It's all about your connection to yourself, period. And whenever I get to that place of questioning what I believe, and like what's real, what's not, like what actually resonates with me or not, I always go back to near-death experiences. So if that helps any of you, if you start to feel like I don't know what I believe anymore, there's just so much documented data and experiences to show that when we pass, there is something else going on. There's something bigger than us. And some people will say, oh, well, that was just something that their brain created. Well, there's a lot of experiences where that part of their brain, the thinking brain, was turned off, and they still had experiences where they're hovering above their body, or they meet God, or they see their loved ones. And whenever I start to question, you know, this whole journey as a whole, I always come back to that. And like I said at the beginning of this, once you wake up, you're up and you see things differently, and it's very hard to come back from that. So from that place, you're just riding the waves, and you're taking things along the way, and you can't get too attached, because that's the ego. You can't get too attached to one thing. It's like you take the tool and then you let it go. You take the tool and then you let it go. And for some of you, I might be a tool, my teachings might be a tool for you, and then you let it go. And that's totally fine. I'm just a person on your journey that helped you. And at the end of the day, if you think that you know it all, the universe will show you that you don't know it all. Trust me. They'll do that to you over and over. They will humble you over and over, and that's a good thing because they're breaking that ego thing. So we're coming to a close here, guys. Please put in the comments if there's anything from your spiritual journey that you see completely different now over the years, and feel free to share any takes that you have based off of what I said. And I hope to do more episodes and more videos like this that are just me like hanging out talking. I'm for sure gonna do a mental health video. I'm for sure going to do a video about celebrities and how their lives can help us. If there's any topics you want me to do, I will, and I hope this helped you guys.